Awesome. All right, now we have a formula that is so powerful, so huge, and by using it, it kind of like has really allowed so many people to actually change the way that they look at others, and most significantly change the way others see them. This has been a really big game changer for me, and so I'm really excited to get into it. So let's go over to the computer and let's make it happen. Now the goal here is, remember that other people, you can have people that are completely and totally wrong, and that's totally okay. But in their minds, they're correct, and they don't think they're wrong because everyone thinks they're right? That's why they have opinions, right? And so the goal here is not to condemn other people. Condemnation, I mean, it's just stupid, right? Anybody can condemn. A fool can condemn. You don't want to condemn people. Remember this idea of Ben Franklin, him saying that he was never going to attack someone, ever. And it changed his life. It's the same thing here. You don't want to condemn others. But what you do want to do is you want to understand them, because once you understand them, you can get a different perspective from where they're coming from. And in all reality, sometimes it might be completely correct. Sometimes it might just be great to actually hear a different perspective, because different perspectives are so valuable. So like, even if you just share a different perspective with somebody else, that's a really valuable thing you can do, because this is something that other people are they have no access to this unless you help them get to it. Or unless they help, they give it to you. It's the same thing, it's a circular process. And so you always want to be searching for these different perspectives. Because wise, tolerant, exceptional people are constantly striving to understand others. That's critical. That's the key. So here's the deal. Try this out, okay? There's a reason why, the other man thinks and acts as he does. Figure out what that reason is. Figure out, what makes somebody do what they do. It's really interesting. You see, like, there are like these insanely racist, like hate slavery, like just some crazy racist guys, and they go to this college at Williams and Mary, and they're like chanting around on like white supremacy and these awful ideas, and some of the African American students go and talk to them and try to understand their perspective and ask where they're coming from and comprehend their personality, because they want to expand and they want to grow and they want to develop themselves and they want to really understand the world around. That's the kind of mentality that you want to embrace. That's the kind of education that you want to look for. That's the sort of movement that you want to work towards, where you're looking for radical transparency and trying to understand all the different perspectives, even if they don't even agree with you. It's key. And that, once you understand their personality, once you understand their past, once you understand their history, that's how you can uncover, the key to their actions today and their personalities. Try this, honestly, and put yourself in the other person's place. Put yourself where they are. Ask how you would feel if you were them. It's key. Now, if you say to yourself, how would I feel if I would react? And how would I react if I was in that person's shoes? You will save yourself time, you'll save yourself irritation, and you'll be able to be interested in them and less likely to dislike them. And in addition, you can sharply increase your skill in human relations. It's really cool stuff. It all comes from this idea of understanding where the other person's coming from. That's the key. You must stop for a minute, turn off your interest in your own affairs, and contrast and think about the concerns that others have, and realize that everyone else in the world feels the same way about themselves that you feel about yourself, and they're all focused on themselves. Thomas Lincoln, Roosevelt. If you can look at others, you can grasp solid foundations of personal relations. It all comes down to thinking about something from another person's perspective. We've covered this a lot, and it's so foundational here. And here's sort of the formula to make it work and how to grow from it and scale from it. So what's cool is most people are focused on like dealing with their own viewpoint, and so few people are able to actually grasp somebody else's viewpoint sympathetically. So if you can sympathize with somebody, if you can understand their viewpoint and then say, look, I get that makes sense, and I understand where you're coming from, now it shifts the whole game, right? Because now you're focusing on the other person and you're understanding where they're coming from instead of just focusing on yourself, right? So Sam Douglas in New York, he used this to tell his wife that she spent too much time working on their lawn, pulling weeds, fertilizing, cutting the grass twice a week, when the lawn didn't look any better than when they moved into their home 4 years earlier. And actually, she was super distressed by his remarks. And each time he made such remarks, the balance of the evening was ruined. And here's the key, right? This guy, he's criticizing, which is awful, his wife, which is just the worst, for doing their yard and like doing what she thought was nice for the family or nice for the home, right? And she's working, she's really trying her best. And this guy's just sitting inside like, don't do that. And he takes this course by Dale, okay? He realizes how foolish he must have been all those years. And it never occurred to him that she actually enjoyed doing this work. Because as soon as he figured that out, As soon as he understood what he cared about, what she cared about, everything shifted, right? What's really cool is, one evening, she really wanted to go pull some weeds and invited the husband to keep her company. And at first he declined, but then he thought better of it, and he thought of it from her perspective and went out after her and began to help her pull the weeds. And she was visibly pleased. And together they spent an hour in hard work, pleasant conversation, because that's what she was passionate about. That's what she cared about. So you have to understand what other people are passionate about and follow that. Pretty simple stuff. After that, he often helped her with the gardening and complimented her on how fine the lawn looked. What a fantastic job she was doing with the yard, where the soil was like concrete. And the result became a happier life for both of them, because they learned to look at things from other people's point of views. He learned to look at it from her point of view. And even if the subject was only weeds, he could understand that it really mattered to her. And that's all that matters. It's the same thing with other people, right? Exact same concept. If you're gonna cooperate with people, if you're gonna be in a conversation, you're gonna achieve with them, you have to consider the other person's ideas and feelings as if they were important as your own. That's the gateway. That's the key. Starting your conversation by giving the other person the purpose or direction of your conversation. Governing what you say by what you would want to hear if you were the listener, and accepting their own viewpoint will encourage others to have an open mind to your ideas. So what you can do is you make it much easier to sort of share ideas or share concepts or share goals or share plans with others by opening up their mind, by listening to them. It doesn't have anything to do with what you do. It's just you listening. It's you just have to care about them, and that's it. Dale has always enjoyed walking and riding in the park near his bike, and like in where he lived, he all but worshipped an oak tree, and he was so distressed season after season to see the young trees and shrubs killed off by needless fires. And what's interesting is these fires, they weren't caused by smokers, they were caused by youngsters who sort of went into the park to go native and to cook, hot dogs and eggs under the trees and stuff. And sometimes, these guys would start a fire, and they started a fire at the campsite. It would rage for so fiercely that the fire department had to be called to fight the fire. And it was crazy. These guys, they were literally going out into the forest and just kind of like setting it on fire, which is kind of not good, man. Fire is it's not bad. It's this bad. But no one was really stopping these kids. And so Dale kept seeing this happen over and over again. And he's like, how can I have a lasting impact, have a lasting change on these individuals and make them actually want to be better people? That's the question. How do you do that? And so, what he realized is there's a sign on the edge of the park that said anyone who started a fire was liable to fine and imprisonment. But the sign stood in an unfrequent part of the park, and hardly any of these culprits ever saw it. And so a mounted policeman was supposed to look after the park, but he didn't take his duties too seriously. Somebody else wasn't focusing on their career, right? They cared more just about chilling out, not a big deal. They didn't worry about it. And because of that, these guys got away. It was really bad for them, right? And so on one occasion, Dale kind of rushed up to the police officer and told him about a fire that was spreading rapidly through the park, and he wanted to notify the fire department. This policeman nonchalantly replied that it was none of his business because it wasn't his precinct. He valued the rules sort of the engagement and of the careers in the department he was in more than he valued the actual life of this force, which is just devastating and awful. And it's really critical that you kind of overcome this destruction so that, when you have sort of similar situations, instead of focusing on stuff that doesn't matter, instead of thinking that you're above the challenge, you're actually able to step up and have the impact you want and make the change you desire, which is really key. So for Dale, if he was so desperate, he went sort of and acted as a self-appointed committee of one to protect the public domain. And in the beginning, he was afraid a little bit that he didn't even attempt to see other people's point of views. And the reason is because he saw this huge fire blazing under the trees, and he was so unhappy about it, so eager to do the right thing, that he actually did the wrong thing. And instead of having quality communication or doing it slowly, doing it the right way, he ran in. These kids rode up to them and screamed at them and said that they could be jailed for starting a fire, and ordered with a tone of complete and total authority that they put out their fire. And if they refused, he would threaten to have them arrested. He unloaded all of his feelings without, for a minute, thinking about their point of view. And what do you think that did to these kids? Do you think that it works in the long term to have force enacted on someone and expect that to make any sort of reliable change? The answer is no. No freaking way. Not gonna happen. These kids obeyed, and they sullenly, with resentment, put out their fire. And for all Dale knows, as soon as he rode over the hill and went back home, they just started their fire again. They don't care. And they longed to burn up the whole park just because they weren't being properly taught. They had awful communication. When you force people to do things, it's not gonna create long-term action, long-term listening. People don't care unless they have a reason to, and you have to share with them a reason to care rather than just forcing them in the short term to do it. We've talked about this a lot. It's a big concept. Now, within the passing years, he kind of learned more about, you know, human relations and how to get really good at winning friends, influence people. And he realized that he could look at this from their point of view as not like some guy just coming up and yelling at them about their fire, and actually like understand like what were they going through, like what were they actually thinking.